The Edify Show with special guest Ben Rosenbaum. And now, the host of The Edify Show, Elliott.
Hi everyone, welcome to Hearties TV Tuesday. Today I'm interviewing Ben Rosenbaum, and I have to tell you honestly, I've always been a huge fan of Ben. I mean, we've been going up for many years now, and when we first went up in the earliest seasons, Ben's character wasn't as much of a standout on the show, but Ben Rosenbaum was always a standout on the set. That guy is so funny, and I love people that don't take themselves too seriously. I love self-deprecating humor. And I love people that love people. And all that to say, I love Ben Rosenbaum. And I could not wait to interview him. And in no way was I able to hide it. Let's take a look. Hi, Win Calls the Hard fans. Elliott Wallach here. Believe it or not, this is actually one of the most excited I've been about an interview for a while. Because I've just been a fan. I've been a real fan of the person. And this is somebody that you guys know as, it's funny, you know him as Mike Hickam. I actually knew him way back in the day when we weren't sure what his first name was. It was question mark Hickam. But I'm talking to Ben Rosenbaum. Ben, thanks for coming on the program.
Wow, I'm happy I came just for that introduction.
Yeah, well, like I said, we've done a number of these, and I love humor. I love you're just a funny guy, and like I was telling you, it's an effortless kind of funny. So I got a feeling if I was to talk to 100 of your friends, I said just write down like a word that describes Ben. I got a feeling funny is going to come up as
Oh man, I hope so. I hope that's a word they think of. Yeah.
Was that pretty much the way you were in high school and all that?
There were times when I think when I was younger, I was definitely like a full-on ham class clown, would have done literally anything for a laugh. And as I've matured, I hope I've left some of that more cringy attempts at humor behind and stick to just playing along. I think it's all about just being open and available and present with people, listening to what they say, because so much of humor is just like picking up on what's happening around you.
Yeah, I find too, just sometimes I just sort of am doing it for me.
Yeah,
you do that too?
Right. Yeah, sure.
Like, I don't know if you have a story like this, but sometimes you like where you say something, you're like, man, that was really funny, and nobody got it,
Yes,
Yeah.
I've found myself in a group of people, and if a joke I was really proud of gets lost in the mix of conversation, I'm not above going back and saying, guys, you gotta hear that again.
Yeah, well,
it's always good the second time around,
Yeah, sure.
especially when you have to explain it. People love that.
That's when it's comedy
that's
gold.
when comedy really sings.
Gosh, I always tell my son, it's like if you want to be funny, sometimes you got to be willing.
Oh, you got to be willing to fall flat on your face.
Not to be funny. Not to be funny.
Yeah, you got to be willing to bomb.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. And I don't think like in the character, Mike Hickam, I think that there's an excellent comedic timing there, and it's sort of this idea sprung on me that I think if you ever played the remake of this film, I think you'd kill it, and it would be Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. I think you'd kill it. Because that whole Jimmy Stewart thing. But you said something in an earlier interview.
Oh yeah,
right?
Sure.
I mean, can you do the impression?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you said something earlier about the fact that Hickam sort of embodied the best of Hope Valley, and then you said, and here he was as mayor.
I feel like a theme throughout movie history is that the person you want in power is the person who's not looking for it. He's not hungering after the power, just wants to do right by people.
Right.
And I think that is definitely who Hickam is.
Yeah. Well, I got a feeling that's who Ben is. But
kind.
You're going to shrug it off. But I got a feeling if I took a poll again. So tell me a little bit about your journey. One of the things I found interesting is this is early. You kind of were learning some of the singing, dancing, I think you said since you were 6?
Yeah. That was,
wow.
I went to, so in Minneapolis, the children's theater there is Tony Award-winning children's theater. I grew up going to see plays there, and one of my first experiences, I think I was about 6, my dad took me to a show, and it included a backstage tour. So, holding my dad's hand, he takes me around, got to see behind all the sets and kind of see the pulleys and behind the scenes and where the work happens. And I loved it. I was so excited, I was more excited by that than by the show I watched. And I said to him, they said they had classes. I said, I want to do those classes. At that time, I guess I was a kid who said I wanted to do a lot of different things.
Right.
And so my parents gave it a year or so where they were like, but I kept, tugging on their shirt sleeves saying, I want to do those classes. And so, yeah, it was a full, audition process, which you can imagine. It's like wrangling cats, getting 6-year-olds to stand in one place together and do all the things you want them to do. But I was really focused on it. I really loved it.
And would you say that you knew that you wanted to be doing this for a living since you were
Absolutely not. I had not thought about it being a job.
Right.
It was just something I did because I loved it.
Right.
It was my after school fun thing to do.
Right.
And then in school, when got into high school and doing the plays there, I loved it as well. But no, I thought I was going to be an architect. I thought I was going to go to school for something totally different. And then it wasn't until I was auditioning for colleges, and even that I got to really last minute. It was like 2 weeks out before the auditions. I was way behind the 8 ball. And I didn't go to one of those schools where they had any sense of sending kids on to acting programs. So I didn't have monologues prepared. I didn't, so it was a scramble. I met a man named Ken Washington who ran the program, the University of Minnesota Guthrie Theater program, and unfortunately he's passed on. But he touched a lot of lives of students of theater, students of the arts. He really nurtured a wonderful space for kids to learn. And he changed my life because I met him. He introduced me to the coaches I used for my audition monologues, and that was it for me. That was the path.
And he was in the college?
Yeah, so he started, co-founded, and ran the program that I ended up going to with the Guthrie Theater. And I was introduced to him, had a chat. I didn't know he was running the program. I thought he was just some guy who kind of knew about college theater. And so he said, have you considered the University of Minnesota Guthrie program? I said, no, not really. I'm more interested in NYU. And he said, okay. And sure enough, I showed up to the audition. There he was behind the table. I was like, oh, no. No, I told him to his face I didn't want to come to this program. But he stuck with me. And even after, I got into NYU, I got into the Guthrie program, and I really thought I wanted to be at NYU. But while I was going out there looking for opportunities to get to know the program, get to know their classes, they were kind of going, no, we're NYU. If you want us, you want us. And he was calling me just to check in, just to say, hey, how's it going? What are you thinking? And he taught at NYU as well. So he was like, I'm happy to tell you about that program. I think you'd also like ours. And it was entirely because of him and his care that I ended up where I went.
And he just saw something in you, apparently.
Obviously. I mean, I feel very lucky that he saw something worth nurturing there.
And it wasn't just that this guy's going to be a really bad architect. I need to...
need to save future people from building collapses. Yeah.
Wait, well, in all seriousness, though, I'm fascinated that you were going to be an architect, and then you said, no, I'm going to...
Well, when I said I was going to be an architect,
or like you were planning,
I just had a
thinking about it.
fascination with it. I really loved Frank Lloyd Wright when I was growing up. I would go, my parents would take me to visit his houses that he designed. And I think when I was 11, I wrote to the program at Taliesin, and I was like, I'm going to be a student of yours one day. I'm going to study under Frank Lloyd Wright's, disciples.
Right.
And then I got to... about the same time where I was considering colleges and like where I would go, what programs, and I realized how much math is involved in the engineering process, and like I was just like, it's not for me. I want to like the artsy part of being an architect. I want the Frank Lloyd Wright version of things where I kind of get to say like I'm going to design a work of art, but that's not what it is most of the time. And so that dream faded.
So I have a feeling, on top of everything else, you can sing, you can dance, you're athletic, you can act. I have this feeling, tell me if I'm wrong, you're an artist, like you can draw.
I'm okay.
I knew it.
I'm okay with that.
Can you leave
with
some
the
for the rest
art.
of us? I mean, I can't draw either, but golly. Yeah, I knew it.
Well, it's
every
enough to get by.
Right.
If we're playing a cast game of Pictionary, I've got enough skill to get by.
Yeah, X is greater than Stickman, and that's where I'm at.
Well, who is actually an excellent cartoonist is Kevin McGarry.
Really?
Yeah, that man can
I
doodle.
didn't. Again, another one. Another one.
Yeah.
Jeez,
Well,
kind
no,
of.
come on. He's got to have that. What else has he got going
Oh
for him?
yeah, sure. Yeah, that poor guy, he's got a tricep that's sort of like with legs on it.
I mean, those watermelons he's got hacked on the
Yeah,
side of
he's
his
seriously. I
arms.
was just standing there interviewing him. I was beginning to feel like Strawberry Shortcake Seabury Beach Party. Just watching the guy's arms going, yeah, it looks a lot like my leg. you know. But I do know you hang out with him too, and he's so funny. I gotta think, like some waitress coming up and serving you, she gets like an experience. It's not like
You know what? That's very much true for Kevin. He will, like, there is not a person that he won't try to engage with and act with, or be funny for.
right.
Not act with, just like tell a joke, make them laugh.
Right.
And that moment we're talking about where the humor falls flat, so often that's him with the servers.
Really?
Yes, he's trying to brighten their day, give them a joke, or make a joke for the table, and they'll walk away. He's like, "It was gold. It was a great joke. What happened?" But yes, he's that funny all the time. He's a great hang.
Yeah, he's fast.
Oh my goodness, he's so
fast.
quick.
Yeah, he's quick. I can see where you two would like carbon bond, like that'd be the thing. That should be the day. That should be the auction item. It's like it could be anything. It could be like go to the water park. That's good. That'll break the bank. But go to do anything. Yeah, you two. I'm sure that would be hilarious. So okay, so then you went off to college. If you don't mind, I'm going to back up a little bit. So you danced
Sure.
from 6 years old, and what ballet, jazz, tap? What were
They
doing?
wanted to give us foundation and everything, starting from that young age. There was it was sort of jazz, modern with the ballet foundations. They weren't going to make full-on Broadway dancers out of any of us.
Right.
Or at least not those. I mean, we were there to get a foundation in all of it. So it was broken into 3 kind of periods of the day, and we would do all 3 every time. There was the dance period, there was acting, and there was singing. And so it wasn't so much like creating fully, totally well-rounded dancers, so much as making sure we understood how to move our bodies.
So one of the questions I always get from the Hearties is how often has Ben Rosenbaum done Swan Lake? Just kidding.
I'm sure that one coming up all the time. I get it too. It's always in my DMs.
I finally had to send it to junk mail. I just did
It's like enough already.
set it up.
Stop asking
Jeez,
me.
if he wanted to tell you, he would tell you.
Yes, I've danced the Black Swan. Of course I have.
Right. So little trivia, I did dance, but I did it from 5th to 8th grade, and I looked like a walking tibia in tights. It was not a pretty picture, but I did mostly tap. I was a pretty good tap dancer. I was talking to Jada about it, best she would tap.
Yeah.
A lot. Did you do any tap that much? Or?
Tap? I didn't do tap at that age. I took a class in college, though. This was one of the beauties of going to school for acting. It was like, well, I've got to pick a movement class in my junior year, and I went for tap, and it was so hard to get into at that age, and I desperately wanted to be able to do it. That was one where I was like, I had a really good buddy of mine in the program there, and he was like an excellent tap dancer, like a hoofer from a young age.
Right.
And I watched him break out those skills occasionally. He was really quiet about it, and then all of a sudden he could just do something that was just amazing.
Right.
And so I was like, oh, I want to do that. And then for me, it was just like, working on that for 2 months and getting nowhere. So yeah, I can't really do the tap.
Yeah, it would be way cooler in college. In the 8th grade, I looked like a freak. It was like somebody, like those people that can twist their tongue or something. It was sort of just a unique creative thing. So then after, can you describe to me, so you went right from college, that was theater, right? So you started in theater and moved on.
Yeah.
So do you remember what the big, oh my gosh, like the big one that got you real excited where you just could barely contain it, that one you were just so stoked about?
A job after
like
college?
landing a job. Yeah, that one big one where you're like, I'm an actor.
There was sort of, these things get built up in your head, especially when you're in a small community. Our school was 20 kids per class. It was a small program, like many of the kind of BFA conservatory style programs. And amongst that group, it was very cool to get to work at the Guthrie Theater, because that was kind of our home base. And so to be one of the actors coming out of school gets to work there was like the dream. And then just on the same level, there's a company called the Acting Company, which has been around since the kind of first class of Juilliard was coming out. And what they do is they take grad students, in our case undergrad, but sort of they equate what we learned to what they learn in grad school in many programs. And they take kids coming out of grad school, people they think have some promise, and would tour us around the country with a couple of shows, 2 Shakespeares in my case. And I guess I gave away the ending, but I came out of school and was working at the Guthrie, and I was extremely happy. I was just overjoyed to get to do that, and I had a number of shows right in a row that I was either understudying or had small roles in. I was just like over the moon to get to spend the time with the actors I got to spend the time with, and on that big stage that I'd been watching for so long. And then the opportunity came to audition for the Acting Company. I was like, this is it. This is my time to shine. And I was really feeling it. I did the first audition, and they called me back. And for Romeo and Juliet, they wanted me to be audition for Benvolio. And I was like, awesome. I was a little crestfallen. I wanted to try for Romeo. Right. And I was like, you don't get anything, you don't get anywhere without asking for what you want. And so I called up the artistic director and I said, I'd love it if you'd consider me for Romeo. And he was like, okay, great. Come on in tomorrow. We'll have you read for Romeo. And then I was like, what have I done? What have I done? Now I've asked for it. They didn't want to see this from me. Now I've asked for it. I've really got to deliver. And I drilled it overnight. I think I barely slept. The callback was the next day, and I wanted to be perfect. And so I called a buddy at the Guthrie, and I was like, can I have one of the rehearsal spaces? I'm going to be there from early in the morning if you can let me in. And I drilled it, and I drilled it, and I drilled it. And I felt so good, so confident. And I walked in, and it was just a panel of all the people I admired, the artistic director of the Guthrie, the artistic director of the Acting Company, and many in between. Ken Washington was there, my idol from school. And they said, well, what would you like to start with? Because I was also auditioning for a character in, it was Comedy of Errors was the other one. And I was like, how about I give you a little Romeo? Just really feeling myself. And I walked back to the back of this big audition space. I'm like it hurts thinking about this. And there was a little part of my brain that was like, maybe I'll just check the lines one more time. And that broke me. I shouldn't have looked down. I looked down at the page and I was like, okay, no, I got it. But something snapped where I'd been doing it off book for like all morning. Right. But I suddenly felt like I needed the page again. And so I set it down and I went back and I got started, and immediately my mind went totally blank. And I remember a moment in it felt so surreal, where I was like, I don't even think I was speaking English. The words went away, but I drilled it so hard that I continued to kind of act it. It was the worst combination of like physically continuing to do the thing. So it was very clear that I had like planned my stupid audition and drilled it so much, but then the words just weren't there. And I was like, and I just pushed through. You could feel it. You could feel it from everybody in the room. It was just awful. And I finished, and they were like, okay, well, let's move on to the next piece. And the whole walk back to the place where I set my audition sides down, I was just feeling like I blew it. I blew it so hard. And it was true. It's, you hope that it's one of those moments where it's like, maybe it wasn't as bad. Like, we're always hard on ourselves.
Right.
No. But the artistic director at the Guthrie at the time, Joe Dowling, took me aside. He called me into his office. It was like a day or two later. And he was basically like, that was a tough one. And I was like, oh yeah? Yeah, it was, wasn't it? And he was like, it wasn't great. And my heart sank. It was brutal to hear. But then he brought me back from the brink by being like, basically I told them, that's not a good indication of who he is. Please take him on. So I ended up on the tour playing Tybalt. Far fewer lines than Romeo, but gets to do a lot of fun, exciting swordplay and stuff. So it ended up being a great tour and a real highlight and a awesome experience, but it was so humbling. So humbling to start out on the tour being like, well, thanks for the opportunity, guys. I know I was really terrible. Thanks for seeing me anyways.
It just makes me love you. The thing is you ask somebody what the highlight is, and you just go right to like basically describing 3/4 of my dating life.
Well, it was a nightmare that turned into a dream, you know?
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so then I guess jumping up to when you came to Wind Calls the Heart, in season 2, and I've been excited to see your own role, expand to what it is, and God willing, expand even that much more, right? I'd love to kind of hear, what your perception was of the fan base. Like, I've been promoting movies for over 20 years. I've never seen a movement like the Hearties. I don't know that it's ever existed.
Yeah.
The Trekkies come to mind in a way, but when you get little old ladies buying iPhones just so they can learn how to tweet, to try to get things to trend, to make sure their favorite show stays on, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, the support's incredible, and it's really exciting to see. And the longer I've been on the show, the more I've gotten to experience the positive elements of that fan base just rising up together to keep the show going. I mean, what we've been through as a show in terms of major cast departures in the past and twists and turns and having so many showrunners and even changeover at the network, there've been a number of things that I think a lot of other shows may not have survived. And our fan base has always stayed true and stayed with us. And we feel an immense gratitude to the Hearties for keeping us going, for keeping us telling these stories and being the reason for the season.
Right, you kind of wonder sometimes. I've been friends with Michael Landon going back quite a few years, and I get a kick out of the idea of how this show has outlasted the Little House on the Prairie or Highway to Heaven, and you kind of wonder about Bonanza, and you kind of wonder what did those guys think when they were going into a season 12 and
keep going. Very lucky if they're smart.
Right. So the last thing I want to talk about is something that I've noticed, because I noticed you on your Instagram that you're active on things that are going to be of a benefit, and I've noticed the MS. So that I actually have a real heart for the MS as well, and so I wanted to talk a little bit about that. So you do kind of basically you raise money. It's like every April.
Yeah, exactly. Every April in LA, at least, they do what's called Walk MS, and that's one of their biggest fundraising events. It's also an opportunity to get a massive community together, all people who are connected to MS in one way or another. Many people there walking or walking with a group of people have MS themselves. But for the most part, it's the communities around those people that get to go. And it's so inspiring to see everybody come together each year. And it was a very good friend of mine who first invited me to join her team walking for Walk MS. And it raises money for the National MS Society. So the event is called Walk MS, but it's the National MS Society, which is the organization behind it. And they do incredible work. And initially, I don't think I understood what that effort was fully about. I went to support my friend and was immediately blown away. But as I said, seeing the turnout of all these people there, with everybody has the custom shirts and the team spirit and a real energy of it's a fun, competitive spirit to raise money for this cause. And for years I did it, and it was just sort of it felt like a personal kind of honor and something I shared with family and friends in terms of asking for donations. And then it occurred to me, I haven't opened this up to the Hearties. And a few years back, I just tossed it out there. I didn't feel comfortable going out and asking for money necessarily, but I thought it's for a good cause. And they came back and just raised me up. I felt incredible. The response from the Hearties each year now just grows and grows, and it's just wonderful. It honestly, it fills my heart when they keep showing up, and it's amazing. There's more meaning behind doing it each year, feeling like I'm reaching people, gathering awareness, and making hopefully a real difference with the money that we raise.
And the awareness. Yeah, I really want to, like I said, so I'm on the screen right now at National MS Society, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so on the screen right now, I put a website, National MS Society. I'd just like to invite everybody. This is going to be a great cause. It is a great cause. I don't know. I've been touched by, I've got friends that have MS. It is a great cause. Let's take and let's get out there. It makes me crazy that technologically we all run around with iPhones and iPads and all these amazing things that we're able to accomplish, and that yet this kind of a disease continues to plague us. And sometimes the only difference is the money it takes to find the technology. And so let's get out there and let's help them help us.
Let's use those iPhones to donate to the National MS Society.
National MS Society. You know what, Ben, thanks again for coming on. I really appreciate it. It's so much fun. Yeah, I appreciate. Hopefully we could do it again another day and maybe another 10 more years.
Let's do it. Yeah,
now.
let's do it for 10 more
years.
years.
Our annual Ben and Elliott show. All right. Such a kind heart. I mean, anybody that can call that guy a friend is a really fortunate person, and illustrated by his commitment to do what he can to fight MS. I mean, I would really encourage everyone, you know, as much as you can, to lean into that and help him. I mean, at Edify, we're going to create an item that we're going to give him that he can auction off, that I hope is going to help him raise some money and blow you away. So stay tuned for that. I mean, we're still designing it, so hopefully that's a hint on just how much awesomeness we're trying to bring to it. But I'll be announcing that as we get closer to this event in late March. It's going to be good. So until then, we'll see you right here on the Edify Show. Thanks so much for joining me, everybody.
Don't miss a very special edition of Hearties TV Tuesday. Elliott will be interviewing Michael Lana Jr. and Ava Cooper. You won't want to miss it. Don't forget to like and subscribe on our YouTube page. And never miss a thing when you register at hearties.com, where people around the world are coming together to support inspiring entertainment. And we'll see you next week on The Edify Show.